Persona 5R is the 4th game in the popular Persona 5 franchise, which is so popular that nobody gave a crap about it until Joker was announced for Smash, including me. Now, of course, when he was announced, the first thing everyone was like, oh boy, I can't wait to play it on Switch, which they can't, so that split the Smash fanbase into 3 categories. People who can play the game, people who can play the game but are still gonna port beg, and people who are gonna port beg, and thus the Smash fans were unfortunately sorted into 3 equally annoying categories. People who could play the game, people who could play the game but still port begged, and people who port begged. Me, of course, I didn't really port beg as much as I'm like, hey, can I just get the game on Switch? That would be pretty dope so my brother can play, but oh well. And then there's that one weeb kid in the corner of the lunchroom eating by himself who stares at you like he knows your sins. Anyway, in Persona 5 you play as Anon. Anon is pretty cool. He can be whoever you want, as long as it falls within 2 to 3 actual phrases you can say, because you can't have the character project yourself too much, right? Now, of course, you always choose the sarcastic option, so there's only really 1 or 2 options, because you want to look cool in front of your anime friends. Which brings us to the story. In Persona 5, you have to save the world from crooked adults. Of course, changing the hearts of crooked adults takes the form of going into their brain and beating the ever-living crap out of them. But the means are unimportant, because the real important thing is this game also doubles as a life simulator, because you all know I have nothing close to that, since I've been working on one video for the last year. Besides my ability to procrastinate for long periods of time, speaking of long periods of time, Persona 5 could take upwards of 100 hours, which is why, when they said they're gonna fix the pacing problems of Persona 5R, I didn't mean that they should add 50 more hours of gameplay, which isn't a bad thing since I paid $60 for a game I already have, and I bought the deluxe edition, so that's about 90. Anyway, let's talk about the new content instead of my ability to spend too much money. Anyway, the new content comes in the form of several things, one including the Phantom Thieves Den. Now this, of course, is where you can hang out with your anime friends, the only ones on your team though. Nobody else knows about this, except for literally every other confidant. Here, you can play a more complicated Uno, which is so fun, I guess. Which is cool, because this version of Uno actually tells you how to play it so that some people don't think that you can play Uno with points, even though it's obviously meant to not be played with points. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Here you can spend the coins you get for getting in-game achievements, which the regular achievements don't count, of course. And of course I platinumed the game, because I have no life. Now Luke, what can you do with these coins? I don't know, I spent it all on the art gallery, because I like looking at art, mainly for games. Museums are boring as crap, because all it is a quiet room where you look at the Mona Lisa or some crap, and nobody wants to see that. It's just a lady vaguely smiling, guys. It's not that cool. However, when I previously mentioned confidants, that brings us to the next portion of the video. Now, that brings us to the next portion of the video. Gameplay. Now, if you know me, which you don't, I hate turn-based combat because it's so boring, especially when you don't do anything productive with it. This game made it not boring. So in the turn-based combat, you have several things. You have several elements that equate to an enemy's weakness. Use their weakness and you can knock them down. Knock down all the enemies and you can use an all-out attack. An all-out attack is a super flashy move where you pretty much kill everything instantly, which is cool because you don't have to play the turn-based combat, which in itself sucks because all turn-based combat sucks. But this doesn't suck as much because it looks cool. But that's only half of the game, because the other half is filled with confidants. Confidants are people you spend time with who may or may not know your Phantom Thieves until like the 10th rank, where they're like, oh yeah, you're totally the Phantom Thieves. Because you're really not that secretive about it, but luckily you have really big plot armor and nobody can see through it. Along with the boy confidants, there are female confidants, you pervert. So those come in the form of the quote-unquote hot girl, the smart girl, the girl who sounds like she's a dude doing an impression of a girl, your teacher, your doctor, some reporter, some ladies selling fortunes on the street, and basically your stepsister. What the hell is Japan into? And while you nerds are talking about which fictional anime girl is the best, I'm over here talking about which fictional boy is best boy. Hi, I'm your host, Luke Carson. Welcome to Best Boy Battles, where we determine 100% accurately, mind you, which boy is best boy. Now, of course, let's set some quick ground rules. First, no homos. First of all, we got the virgin Akechi, okay? He's poorly written, he thinks pancakes are better than waffles, and he's a Light Yagami ripoff. I'll let my past self explain that one. I know what you're saying. Luke, he doesn't
take a potato chip and eat it.
No, he takes this thing, it's spicy, and then eats that, and it's funny. Anyways, he even second on our list, we have the Virgin Mishima. Next up, we got Ryuji. Okay, look at this dweeb. He makes up new words. He is blonde. Can't run because of a broken leg. Like, bro, just walk. It's not that bad. And not only do girls not like him, he can't even say And finally, and certainly not least due to the nature of this list, we have the Chad Yusuke, okay? He's charming, knows what resplendent means. If you know what resplendent means, you're lying. Ladies love him. He paints what he wants because he's good at art. He spends his money how he wants, even though he can't get home afterwards. He literally gets off one train station early to save money. Who does that? Oh yeah, Yusuke, the Chad of Persona 5. And he knows art has no boundaries. Of course, I'm gonna pretend like I know all about art, which I don't. I just like looking at art books. Anyway, let's talk about the new confidants, Takuto Maruki and Kaizumi Yoshizawa. These characters play almost no importance to the new game's narrative at all, until you get into the epilogue, which we will not be talking about for spoiler reasons. So these characters are just kind of there and just put in the story. They do a pretty good job of adding them into the main story, even though they're really not that important, but they're probably the two of, if not the two best written characters in the game. Their inclusions felt so natural to the point where if I didn't play the original Persona 5, you could probably convince me that they weren't new to the game if I hadn't seen the marketing, which said they were new. But anyway, now that we have established the new well-written characters, and that we aren't going to spoil the epilogue, let's talk about Akechi, who we will spoil his baseline story, so just keep that in mind. Akechi is easily the worst character in the game, writing-wise. In the original game, all he did was appear, act as your foil, you like randomly get knocked up confidant rank with him, and then he'd betray you because nobody sees it coming that he's actually the bad guy, which he technically isn't, but that's besides the point. Nobody would predict that he's the bad guy because he's so well written, because he's not well written at all. Anyway, in the final reveal, he reveals that he has information that would lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton. And of course, when he reveals that, he makes like Jeffrey Epstein and kills himself, which pretty much ends him up being a pretty poor character in the story. This game goes back on his confidant and tries and adds it, so you actually have to hang out with him. Which, while it does make his character better, it does not fix the poor writing for him story-wise. Which finally brings us to my review score. So, I'm going to do this differently than most things. I'm going to give my subjective and objective. Objective is what I think the game is, like, without putting any bias, and subjective is like how much I enjoyed it. With that being said, I give this game an objective score of 7. There are a lot of problems holding this game back from being the great game it can be, which by no means is not a bad score. This is still really good on my ranking. Don't think of my ranking as a 70%. Finally, we have an objective score of 9. I really enjoyed this game, even though some of the areas can get boring, which gives this game an overall score of 8 out of 10. You should totally play this if you have a PlayStation. And if it comes to Switch ever, which it probably won't, play it there too. Anyway, I've been Luke Carson. Have a good night.
I do not regret with my choices. I'm rather proud.